So in this talk, I'll just give a brief, because I'm sure you all know and have heard this to death. Treatment machines, multi-leaf collimators, what are Varian log files, and a brief history of them, the pros and cons, how they're used, how I use them for my research, the results, conclusion, and that'll be great. We'll be done by lunch. The treatment machines, the linear accelerators, they're used to treat cancer patients. So the basic idea of them is they accelerate charged particles down an accelerating waveguide to speeds close to the speed of light. They get more energy. They curve around, smash into an X-ray target where they undergo braking. They give off bremsstrahlin radiation, which is then collimated and then used to treat the patient. So the bremsstrahlin radiation hits the patient and annihilates all the cells in its path. The main problem with this is that the radiation doesn't distinguish between cells. It doesn't know what's healthy, it doesn't know what's cancerous. So it just annihilates everything. So you need to aim the radiation to plan out your treatment so that it only hits the planned tumor volume of what you want to get rid of. And you do that through two main ways. The first is collimating the radiation. The second is rotating the gantry. So the treatment machines is on a gantry which can rotate around the patient, as it were. It allows a superposition of the dose delivered. So this is an IEC convention, 0-degree gantry angle is directly above the patient, 180 is directly below, 270, 90 on the sides. So by rotating the gantry around the patient, you can deliver a dose from multiple angles. So the planned tumor volume in the middle gets a higher dose than the healthy surrounding tissue, which is good. I should also say that gravity, the ever-present force, also does affect the gantry. It makes the gantry sag by like a centimeter or a millimeter. There's been papers done and whatnot. So that's a seed for later. I'm going to come back. I'm planting seeds. It's great. The second one is the multi-leaf collimator. So you've got the collimation through the primary collimation, then it goes through jaws, and then in Varian machines it hits the multi-leaf collimator. So a multi-leaf collimator is affixed to the treatment head for the extra collimation, and it's made up of multiple leaves, tungsten leaves they're called, that are all independent from each other. They all have their independent motors and they can all extend and retract independently from each other, which means that they can make all these pretty shapes in which to conform the radiation to the planned tumor volume. Now there's different types. The main one I've been looking at is the M120 MLC, which just means that there's 120 leaves on it in total. There's 60 per bank, so you've got the left bank, the right bank, bank A, bank B, just to differentiate those two. This is an M80 MLC, but I couldn't find any pictures of an M120, so that's fine. Yes. So moving on to Varian log files. What are Varian log files and how are they used? Well, Varian log files are just an umbrella term for Dynalog files and TrueBeam trajectory log files, which for all intents and purposes serve the same purpose. It's just that Dynalog files were present in Varian machines before the TrueBeam machine, and TrueBeams have come in after. So what they do, Dynalog files, they log information regarding the treatment in 50 millisecond intervals. So they log information of the gantry angle, the MU delivered, the collimator angle, whether the beam is delivering radiation or not, and the most important one, in my opinion, the expected position of the leaf from the treatment plan, and also the actual position of the leaf that it records during treatment. And you can pull that out at the end, and you can compare the expected position of these leaves and the actual positions of the leaves, and you can find the error of the leaves, like how far away from where they are meant to be they actually are. So, the MLC system resides in the treatment head, which rotates around the patient, and it's pulling all this information in. So the TrueBeam trajectory log files have a different structure from the Dynalog files. I'll go into the structure in a second. And instead of recording information every 50 milliseconds, it records information every 20 milliseconds. So you've got a higher resolution there. I'm not going to go into the structure of the TrueBeam trajectory log files if I'm being, because all the TrueBeam log files that I received from Belfast were actually converted into the Dynalog file format. So I didn't have to worry myself about that. But it's fairly straightforward as well from what I've looked at. I should also say, completely nothing to do with Varian log files, but TrueBeam machines actually have an added supervisor module in the system. And it pulls information from all these different subsystems, and it adjusts the leaf position just to make it so that it's more accurate and whatnot, so that there's less of an error. So this is what a Dynalog file looks like. It's split into two components. You've got the first 6 lines of a header, and then you've got the content, or the juicy parts. So on the header, you've got your patient ID, the number of leads in the MLC, whether it's being delivered in Varian scale or IEC scale. So what Varian's done is they've made their own scale. So in IEC scale, the gantry angle 0 is directly above the patient, 180 is directly below. In Varian scale, 180 is directly above, and 0 degrees is directly below. And the default is to deliver in Varian scale for reasons. So that's just annoying, but I can easily just change it back to IEC scale and whatnot. And then, so you've got the first 6 lines, and then on the 7th line is the first line of content. And the 7th line is the first time step, the first 50 millisecond time step. The second 50 millisecond time step is appended to the one underneath, 8, and then you just keep on appending lines of information until the treatment ends delivery, the delivery stops. So on the first column, you've got the current dose fraction and MU, or the gantry angle. I've never seen the gantry angle in the first column. It's always been the current dose fraction in MU. It is annoying because at the end of the treatment, the MU is normalized to 255,000. So you don't actually know like how much dose was delivered. You can only find out a normalized dose map from these Dynalog files. I don't know why, it's just there. It also tells you whether the beam is delivering radiation or not, if it's on or off, the gantry rotation, collimator rotation, and as I said before, the expected position and actual positions of all the leaves on all the banks at all the time steps. So how the expected position and actual position leaves are recorded, it's in relation to the center line. So between the 2 banks, you've got a center line down the middle. If the leaf is retracted back from the center line, it has a negative value. If it's extended over the center line, it has a positive value. So it can have, say, for example, -2 millimeters means that it's retracted 2 millimeters from the center line. That's just how it is. So this is just something I whipped up using the Dynalog files. You've got time steps down the bottom. You can convert that to seconds if you want. You know that each time step is 50 milliseconds. The position on the y-axis, so this is the center line here. This is like 7 millimeters retracted from the center line, 15 millimeters extended over the center line. The expected position of the leaves in red, and the actual position of the leaves in blue. And these just denote whether the beam is on or off. So for these time steps here, the beam is on. For these time steps here, the beam is off. So you really only see this sort of profile in step and shoot treatments, where there's multiple segments, for example. So what's happening over here is that this is the delivering the first segment of the treatment, and then the beam is turned off for the leaves to move to the next segment. Now, as soon as the beam is turned off, the expected position of the leaves just teleports straight away to the next segment, whereas the actual position, because leaves can't teleport in real life, has to slowly move its way up there, and by the time the beam is turned back on again, they're in the same position. This, I guess, just means that you can't look at the error of the leaves, the expected takeaway, the actual position of the leaves, when the beam is off, because you've got these kind of inconsistencies. The second is, of course, if the beam isn't delivering radiation, then really there's no point of looking at the error, because really it shouldn't affect the treatment in any way. So that's that. So a brief history, I guess, on Varian log files. Back in 2003, Lee et al. Confirmed, yeah, with 2D diode array that they were all dandy, and Zidon et al. In 2004 with EPIDs also said that they were great. They've been used for quality assurance all the way back since 2002. With Litzenberg, he made a semi-automated QA system which found the positional error of each individual leaves, the velocity of each leaves, I think, as well as a dose analysis as well. And in 2006, they were used also for Monte Carlo simulations, but they were only used to find for their if the beam was delivering radiation or not at each time step. If they were, then they just fired an electron through as well. And also, these other people, who I will not try and pronounce their names, also created many programs to analyze Varian log files for quality assurance. Actually, some of the interesting ones, what they actually do is after the treatment, they take the actual positions of the leaves and they convert it back to a DICOM file and they put it back into the treatment planning system. And then they run the treatment planning system again, so then you can find a dose volume histogram and all this really cool information about that. I didn't get a chance to do that, unfortunately, but it is there and it has been done. And also there's commercial software. I think you guys use Argus QA, Mobius FX, and of course Dynalog file viewer and what not. So how these work, they use them to find the positional errors of the leaves. Also, because you know the leaf positions, because you know how much radiation is being delivered at each time step, you can compute dose distribution maps from this data. It is a bit blurry, but that's fine. So you've got the position values from the center line, the normalized fluence, because once again, the multi-units are normalized to 255,000 because of reasons. Now the videos aren't working. I know this. I will try and click it, but it still won't work. It's fine. I got this. I got this. This is just, I guess, a little something something. So you've got bank B, bank A over here, for example, moving. So radiation, when the radiation is being delivered, you're only adding, I guess, the dose to all the areas where there's a gap between it, and that's how a dose distribution can be built up from the ground, for example. Now, because you have the expected and actual positions of the leaves, you can create an expected dose distribution and an actual dose distribution. And then using these two different distributions, you can perform gamma map analysis on them. So basically you're just comparing two different maps to see how similar they are to each other. So that's another way that you can analyze stuff. Now, there are many limitations of Varian log files, of which I will go through some now. So one of the main limitations is how the leaf positions are recorded, because they don't actually, they don't record the leaf positions directly. What they do, they count how many times the motors of each leaf revolve, basically, and then from there they can do some maths, look at the torque of the motor and whatnot, and find out where the leaf should be. Now the problem with that is if the motor isn't connected to the leaf correctly, for example. And this happened last year, Agnew et al. Last year, they found that one of their leads had a loose T-nut connecting the motor to the leaf. So the motor was revolving fine. The Varian log files were saying, yeah, the leaves are extending and retracting as they should be, but the leaves weren't moving. And they picked this up on their independent like dosimeters and whatnot, but not the Varian log files, which is rather bad. Another problem is that they're dependent on the treatment machine. If for some reason the whole machine has been calibrated incorrectly such that the center line is offset, then all the leaves will also be offset, and resulting deliveries, there'll be a massive systematic shift. Also, because of the location of the MLC system in the gantry head, it's not going to pick up on factors such as gantry sag, outside external factors, and also, you know, patient setup errors, but what can you do about that? So this next bit is more to do on how I calculate the delivered dose. I'm fully willing to admit that there are many better ways than I actually did to calculate the dose, but how I did it, I assumed the beam was delivered perfectly. It tells you at this time step that the beam is delivering this much radiation, and I assumed that the beam was homogeneous, that there was no backscatter from the treatment couch or the treatment head or anything, that it wasn't skewed in any way. You ignore dose ramp up and fall off effects, and you assume leaf transmission is negligible and all that stuff. So, but like I'm sure like Monte Carlo simulations and whatnot are far better. There's also a small lag inherent in the Dynalog files. There's a small 50-second lag in the actual system. And what that means is basically when it records the actual positions of the leaves, it records them in the time step after. For example, at a certain time step, the machine records the expected position, to be a certain point, but the actual position that it's putting into that point is that of the previous time step. From a dosimetric point of view, it's completely fine, because 15 milliseconds is not a lot of time, and it just follows slightly before, but from just a purely positional error that you're looking at, you see there's most of the leaf errors are never zero. There's always like a small offset, like a small tiny offset that you look at. But besides from all of that, it's great for QA. Not as a primary source by any means. It's good for, it's right there. It's incredibly easy to pull out. You can easily run analysis on it, like computationally wise. It's really cheap. So you may as well, and it gives you a wealth of data, provided that the data it gives you is correct, is the main thing. The second thing it's really good for is doing lots of stats on, which is what I did. I did a lot of stats on a lot of deliveries. So I got all these files, 1,826 picket fence, 70 sliding gaps, 1,643 7 shoot, 240 dynamic IMRT, and 1,451 VMAT treatments to look at. It was good fun. The main thing I looked at was the positional error of the leaves versus the treatment modality, so 7 shoot, dynamic IMRT, VMAT, versus the treatment site, head and neck, prostate pelvic node, versus the leaf velocity, how fast the leaves were moving. The treatment machine, I looked at Trilogy machines, Clinic-IX and TrueBeam machines, and also the gantry angle, see if there was a sort of a gravity effect in play, even though that the MLC system is inside the treatment head as it rotates, but maybe it's just affecting the MLC leaves. I was originally going to show, but I'm sure you guys all know what picket fence is. The leaves move in a picket-like fashion and pickets appear. Sliding gap is pretty much the same, so you've got bank A and bank B going across the screen like so, with a constant gap between the two. Step and shoot, basically the leaves are moved into position. Radiation is delivered, radiation is turned off, they move into the next position, the gantry is rotated, etc. Dynamic IMT is the same thing, except the leads get to move unidirectionally, and VMAT is anything goes. So the leaves are moving everywhere, the gantry angle's rotating a whole arc, and lots of radiation is being delivered. So how I analyze all these files are basically, I just use MATLAB to create a bunch of programs that assess them all. So they read in all the data, you can easily just set up some, loops and whatnot. What I mainly calculated was the root mean squared deviation of each delivery, So that means basically, well, for these results anyway, I found each error of each leaf, on each bank of each time step, and then I pulled that up for the whole delivery, and then I just found the root mean squared of each. So each delivery was assigned one value of the root mean squared deviation, just so that it's easier to look at the end. You lose information, but it's fine as a broad metric. And also the velocity of the leaves, you know the position values, you know the time steps between the leaves, you can easily pull up the velocity of how fast they were moving. So some pretty results. So this is the root mean squared deviation of VMAT treatments at different sites for true beam machines. So you've got head and neck treatment sites, prostate pelvic node treatment sites, and prostate treatment sites, and the y-axis is the root mean squared deviation. So there's like, I don't know, like 700 head and neck treatments. So there's 700 points there, each representing the error of one treatment. So I guess it's just, I just find it interesting, that's all. Head and neck prostate pelvic node has a greater error than prostate, but I guess that's what you expect, given that prostate is, I guess, less complicated treatment to perform, and whatnot. I just thought that was cool. But this one was cool. So these are all delivered on clinic IX machines. I've got 7-shoot of the prostate, the dynamic IMRT of the prostate, and VMAT head and neck. Unfortunately, they didn't have VMAT for the prostate because they were like, why would we use VMAT on the prostate? So I converted it to the head and neck of VMAT, so that's fine. So I mean, it's what you would expect. 7-shoot has the least error, then dynamic IMRT, then VMAT, because when the error is being recorded for 7-shoot, the leaves are stationary, so you wouldn't expect much error. Dynamic IMRT, the leaves are moving, but unidirectionally, and in VMAT, they're all over the place. That's not to say that VMAT is worse, I guess, at delivering treatments. It's certainly conformal. I mean, all this is taking into account is the positional error of each leaf, not how well the treatment is delivered. That's all. So 7-shoot is more accurate, however, the treatment might be worse than VMAT, etc. Also, I did a lot of picket fence QA. I looked at a lot of that for different treatment machines. So in Trilogy and Clinic IX, I had the same, roughly the same order of magnitude for the root mean squared deviation. But TrueBeam down here was a whole order of magnitude less than the other two treatment machines. This is mainly, I postulate, because of the supervisor module that's added in. So you've got that supervisor module that's not present in the Clinic IX or the Trilogy machines that is constantly polling the subsystems every 10 milliseconds and correcting the leaf positions and whatnot. Also, TrueBeam is a newer machine. Clinic IX Trilogies are older machines that might play into it as well. But no, that's cool. I like that graph. So, this one here is some VMAT treatments, this is picket fence treatments delivered on a TrueBeam machine. So what I've done is I've gotten the picket fence treatments and I've assigned each positional positional error of the leaves to the gantry angle that they were delivered at. And I've done that with all of it. So then I split it up into gantry arcs, the control points like 0 to 2 degrees, 2 to 4 degrees, 4 to 6 degrees, etc., 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 all around, and I averaged all the error in there, and I got this kind of point. So what you're looking at here, the radial component is the positional error, and 0 degrees is the gantry angle in the IEC convention, so that's directly above the patient. 180 degrees is directly below the patient, and 270 and 90 degrees are to the side. So this is for bank A, and this is for bank B, and the leaf gap error. But we'll be concerned with these two. These are the interesting ones. So you definitely see that there is a gantry dependence on the error. It's there. There's a wide 1 and 270, less so on 90. Well, at least compared to 0 and 180, and it's more even, symmetrical for bank B, which is weird. I think very interesting, because in bank A you've got this greater error near gantry angle 270 compared to 90, whereas in bank B you've got the greater error in gantry angle 270 and 90 degrees. So you would expect, I guess, bank B and bank A to be mirror images of each other. When, if say for example there was greater error at 270, you would expect greater error at 270, less error at 90, so just this mirror flipped. But it's not so. So you can't really say that it is a result, I guess, of gravity, because of this weird asymmetry present in bank A. But it's definitely gantry dependent. This is only one of them, only for one of the tree beams. I looked at a lot more treatment machines, but they all had the same sort of weird pattern, as it were. I should say, even though this is incredibly weird, the scales that we're actually looking at, this is true beam machines for picket fence, like the error is 0.01 millimeters. So that's like, what, 10 microns? So it's not, I guess, clinically relevant at all. But it is a pattern that is there, and I guess it might be expanded upon in more complex treatments, but I highly doubt it. But it is interesting, and it has kept me up many a night, bashing my head against a table trying to figure out why one of them is asymmetric and the other one isn't. Yes, this is also fun. So I looked at sliding gaps. You have some sliding gaps delivered at 10 millimeters per second, sliding gaps delivered at 20 millimeters per second, and sliding gaps delivered at 30 millimeters per second. And you look at the error of all of them. And you see at 10 millimeters per second there's less error than 20 millimeters per second, less error than 30 millimeters per second. Now, if you recall, before I said that there was a lag inherent in the analog file systems. So some of this is due to the lag, because leaves moving at 20 millimeters per second can move further in the time step of 15 milliseconds than leaves in the 10 millimeters per second one. So there's a greater error just inherent from the lag there. I did factor it out the lag. It's just a mess. And it is still there, but it's less prevalent. But there's a still increasing trend of greater error with greater velocity, which again it's what you would expect. This whole thing is what you would expect. So those are the main results, really. There were others, but less interesting. So basically, in conclusion, I guess Varian log files are great form for supplementary QA and doing lots of bulk statistics on. There was, well, not gravity, sorry, there's a gantry dependence present in the MLC, but whether that's from gravity or just some mechanical issue is still remaining to be seen. Positional errors increasing with leaf velocity, again, it's what you would expect. And I guess true beam machines are better because because they're new and fancy. So yes, thank you for coming and listening to me.